All right, welcome back to Bayou Time. I thought last week we got a lot of press releases from law enforcement, but once again, we appreciate them being on and being so transparent because you want to know, especially when crimes are in your neighborhood and they're hitting so close to home. And we felt because they had some joint efforts between Houma Police and the Sheriff's Department that we would get them both on today. So once again, let's show our guest. Lieutenant Travis Theriot, right next to me, Chief of Detectives, Houma Police Department. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me again.
All right, Lieutenant Blake Tabor, once again, Public Information Officer for Terrebonne Parish. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's start off with what turned out to be a joint investigation, but Travis, we'll start with you on the first press release, and this deals with people were calling in and about Tulip Drive. They had a lot of activity and both stories were flying all over the place, and I know you all had to do a lot of investigation on that.
Right, and I know I reached out to you and told you we would update you as soon as we could because there was a lot of stuff that was coming in that we had to try and figure out. But initially, in the early morning hours, we received the call of some gunshots back on Tulip. And it was actually 3 citizens that were back there exercising, and the car kind of swerved towards them in their lane. And when they did that, it kind of pushed them off the road. They seen the driver and the occupants. They made eye contact as they were passing. But then as they got a little distance down the road, the occupant of the vehicle exited and started firing some gunshots into the air and pretty much scared the death out of them. They took off running. Thank God nobody was hurt. There was no property damage, anything like that. So right after that comes in, all of a sudden, one after the next, we start getting stolen car, stolen car, stolen car. Well, then one of the vehicles that was stolen actually had some firearms in it. So the caliber of the weapon that was stolen was the caliber of the shell casings that we had located. So that kind of fit. A little while later, the vehicle that we suspected to be involved was actually located off of Mystic Boulevard. It was abandoned in a field, and the suspect took off running. By the time we were able to get units in the area, I guess he kind of blended into the neighborhood and got away. And then I think it was the following day, we had received information from the Sheriff's Department. They reached out to us, and they had very much a similar incident. And our guys linked up with their investigators that afternoon, and once they were finished with their investigation, our investigators did a great job. They went in and they were able to talk to them and figured out what happened, and everything we suspected, was actually true. And we linked them and charged them with 2 counts of felony theft and 3 counts of aggravated assault with a firearm.
A 15-year-old?
15-year-old kid, yeah.
Wow, they get brave. And let me bring in Lieutenant Blake Tabor. So a joint investigation ensues. That's the reason I have them both on the desk so that we can, put them together. They do great work together. So what took place from there? Y'all were in constant communication with Houma PD?
Absolutely. So on the 2nd, at very early morning hours, shortly after 6 a.m., we were called to the 3700 block of Thomas Drive in reference to a residence that had received multiple gunshots into the home. What was so disturbing, as investigators continued to look into that, there was an elderly female occupant of that home that was laying on her couch who came within inches of being struck by some bullets, so several bullets as a matter of fact. So at that point, detectives began talking to neighbors. We got a possible vehicle description of a vehicle that may have been involved, which they identified as a white SUV. And it just so happens at that time that we were taking a report of a stolen vehicle in a separate part of Terrebonne Parish. We were able to quickly link that together, that vehicle that was stolen may have been the one that was involved in this particular shooting. The case just progressed from there. And ultimately, we were able to locate the vehicle on Coteau Road. They safely completed a stop where they found 3 juveniles inside the vehicle. As the investigation continued, 2 of those particular juveniles were charged in connection with the crime. Through investigative means, it was determined that one of the juveniles in that vehicle was not involved due to the time that he was picked up. He would not have been present at the time of the shooting. So during those interviews, an adult male was identified as being involved and the perpetrator of that particular shooting on Thomas Drive. And so as the case just continued to flow, they began to reveal some additional information about other details of crimes that have happened. And of course, it was pertinent for us to get in touch with Houma PD.
Well, let me ask you, when you have something like this that takes place, and we'll finish out this segment on this, and you have different jurisdictions, how do you go about charging them? Like, you charge them in your jurisdiction, you charge them in yours, or does it go to the DA's office and they put all the charges together?
So when it's a juvenile, it's all going to end up in juvenile court. But as far as who prosecutes, we all go through the same court system. So that really wouldn't, it wouldn't really affect
So
it.
y'all both would have your own
There's
little
two-
segment of it?
Own independent
Yeah.
investigations of each other.
Wow.
Two
Okay.
completely separate investigations.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever, I mean, I'm sure it happens a lot, but we don't get it a lot in the press
And look,
release.
and then you have a third agency that actually came into this, which would have been Lafourche Parish Sheriff's Department today. The last car, or one of the cars that was still out there that were stolen by these individuals, was the Toyota Corolla, and that was recovered out in Bayou Blue today,
Wow. So-
abandoned.
So that's pretty good teamwork. That's great to hear. Cooperation goes a long way, and we appreciate that. What we're going to do, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, got a lot more press releases that we're going to get these gentlemen to talk about. It's a sign of the times. They're busy out there. We ought to thank them every time we see our law enforcement. We'll be right back.
AJ Doman Chevrolet is your one-stop shop for all your new, used, and medium-duty Chevrolet needs. The 23s are arriving daily, and now's your chance to save on all remaining inventory. Buy with confidence with lifetime warranties on all used cars at no additional charge.
Tired of being told no? We say yes at AJ Doman Chevrolet at the foot of the Morgan City Bridge in Berwick.
AJ Doman Chevrolet, the dealership that works for you.
Lifetime warranties excluded on certain units.
Here at Rouse's, we have our own brands of products which you'll find down every aisle of our stores. These are the best quality at the best price. They compare to the national brands we sell, but at a lower cost. Most are made right here, but we travel the world too. And we personally taste test and guarantee every item. So if our name's on the label, you can trust it's good. Rouse's brand, best quality at the best price.
All right, welcome back. Once again, we're talking with Lieutenant Travis Theriot with the Houma Police Department. We appreciate him being here, and Lieutenant Blake Tabor with the Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office. They were involved in some independent but joint investigations. And I want to tell you, if you hear a cell phone every now and then buzzing, we got two gentlemen that are always on call. They have to keep their phones on. It's a deal we made with them when they come on. We got to let them do their work. So if you hear a little buzzing, it's okay. Okay? All right. So let me turn back to Lieutenant Tabor. I want to stick on these first ones that started at Tulip, and like Lieutenant Travis said, 3 agencies are involved with. But wasn't there something that took place on Prospect that maybe tipped y'all off or sort of put it together?
There was. Well, at the time, we weren't aware of the circumstances surrounding Houma's investigation. But what became very important to linking these together was the fact that when our suspect vehicle departed Thomas Drive, it proceeded over the Prospect overpass. We got some details during the course of that interview that said that the driver and passenger of that particular vehicle began shooting at random people that were walking over the Prospect overpass. So, you know, it's a twofold thing. Number one, when that information came to light, I believe that shed some really important details on what the Houma Police Department was working and sort of substantiated a lot of things for them. But number two, we're still trying to identify those people who may or may not have been victims at the time. So we're encouraging anybody out there, if it happened to have been you, December 2nd, approximately 8 o'clock in the morning, could have been shortly thereafter. If you were walking across the Prospect overpass and you were shot at and you failed to report it to police, or you heard some loud bangs, didn't realize what was going on, we urge you to immediately call the sheriff's office so that we can deal with that.
I would think it's not like the overpass by Tabor in general where they have cameras all over it.
Correct.
Prospect might be a little more limited as far as.
Absolutely.
So we definitely need the witnesses. But let me ask you this, because on Tulip, they were firing in the air, am I correct?
Yes.
On Prospect, they were firing at?
Yeah, the witness account was that they were firing at them or in the general vicinity of them as opposed to in the air.
Neither's good, but one's worse than the other.
Absolutely.
Wow, okay. So once you got that information that it's not every day that a car's firing shots out, so y'all were able to piece it together.
Sure, and,
Right.
and in full disclosure, I believe that's not the initial information that drove us to report that to the police department. It was the information that we got during the course of the investigation about their potential involvement in what was going on in Houma. And then as the details began to surface, that was probably some investigative details that were given to investigators, in which their ears probably perked up pretty fast because that was very similar to what they were doing.
How does that work when y'all have two different agencies, but normally is it more the street patrol that's talking, or is it more the hierarchy that are talking together, the chief, the sheriff, or is it mostly the road patrol that's sharing information?
It's everybody. Whenever you have something like this, everybody works together. You know, it really doesn't matter. You might have the chief out working with you, the captain out working with you. Everybody's still a police officer, so
Right.
everybody will come together and take part and do their role in the investigation.
This could have gone bad, not that it's not bad enough, but if somebody had been hit, my God, I mean, do we know how many rounds were fired, or do we have any idea? Was it a lot? Was not that one's any less of a burden, but how many are we talking about here?
I can tell you in our investigation on Thomas Drive that we're not exactly releasing that information.
Okay.
Our investigators obviously have that information at hand, but I can tell you that it was multiple shots fired at the residence. And my understanding is that every incident that occurred, it wasn't just a solo shot that was fired. It was multiple shots that were fired during each incident.
And I think what disturbs me more, I've been knowing you guys for a long time. I wrote on the beat with you guys a long time. The age.
Right, they're getting younger.
Yeah, they're getting brazen.
You know, it's really wasn't a common thing to see. You know, just a few years back, but the age that they're doing, it's not playing video games anymore. I almost rather see the kids stay inside and play video games again. You know?
Yeah, they're getting brazen. And Lieutenant Tabor, y'all seen a lot more of that out there with juveniles, or was that just an isolated thing?
No, unfortunately, it's something that's kind of come into fruition in the recent years. I think the thing that concerns me the most is when you have people that are of an adult age, and I'm not talking 18 or 19, but you have 22, 23, 27-year-olds that should know better. And they have a job to direct our youth in a positive direction, and on most accounts, they're the ones that are driving them to crime. Now, that's not to say that we don't have the juvenile element here that's perpetrating crime on their own, okay, because that certainly does happen. But I think it's very disturbing when you have adults that are perpetuating this type of crime onto kids.
And real quick, I know y'all both been, in the past, we were scared to say gangs, but then administration just came out and said, look, we do have some gang.
Sure.
Is this any gang-related activity or pretty much isolated?
No, this is the recent ones, like this particular incident, that so far from what I've seen, I haven't seen any gang relation with them.
Okay, all right. Lieutenant Tabor, you would agree with that?
And that would be similar for us, too, in this particular instance. We obviously have had some full-fledged gang investigations, but there's been no indication that this is a part of that.
All right, well, good. All right, we appreciate it. We're going to take another short break. We're going to come back. We have a lot more. We have just a lot of activity that's taking place. And once again, we appreciate law enforcement always making themselves available to us. It just helps fill in a lot of the blanks. A lot of you have questions about a lot of these areas, and certain areas. So stay tuned. We're getting to your area, I promise. We'll be right back.
Lock in your rate at Terrebonne Ford.
That's right. Order your new Ford today and lock in your rate.
Plus, pay below MSRP. So come see us at Terrebonne Ford in Houma. Because Terrebonne Ford delivers.
Welcome to the Cypress Stop, your new Phillips 66 on the corner of 311 and Savan Road. We have all your breakfast, lunch, and dinner needs with smoked chicken, ribs, boudin, and daily plate lunches. We have a very large selection of liquors, wine, beer, tobacco, vapes, bait, and tackle. This year, we are carrying Christmas trees, locked or fresh. These are the same trees that Dubois Nursery carried. Santa Claus is coming to town November 27th. Join us for pictures. Cypress Stop, home of the happy customer.
All right, welcome back. We are joined by Lieutenant Travis Theriot, once again, Lieutenant Blake Tabor. We have them both up here because we had some joint investigations going on. On this segment, we'll focus on 3 with the Houma Police Department, and we do have some feel-good stories coming up after this. Just to let you know, Houma PD and Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office, they're out in the community, and they're doing a great job. Well, let's turn to New Orleans Boulevard. There was another incident, a 46-year-old male. Can you bring us up to speed on that one?
Yeah, so on December 4th, around 11:30 a.m., we received a call from local medical facility about a subject being shot in the abdomen, and round had actually exited. He got there, he was in stable condition, but what we learned was that he was actually attacked by his brother-in-law, Damian Fitch, on New Orleans Boulevard, and Damian fired multiple shots in his direction, and the victim was actually able to get the gun from him once the weapon was empty, and Damian fled the area. But since then, we have obtained an arrest warrant for attempted second-degree murder for Damian Fitch, and anyone with information is asked to contact the Houma Police Department at 985-873-6371 or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-743-7433.
And they're eligible for $1,000 cash?
Yes.
Okay, if anything leads to a conviction. All right, let's go to 1104 Lafayette Street, and there's another release on that one. Can you bring us up to date?
So that one was on December 3rd, 2:30 a.m. Home Police Department responded to
1104 Lafayette.
On Lafayette. Huh?
Yeah.
So many of them.
Yeah.
So 1104 Lafayette Street was around 11 o'clock p.m. on December 2nd, 2022. Officers responded, located a victim suffering from gunshot injuries to his extremities. Officers actually stepped up and performed some life-saving measures and did some things that I think may have actually helped save him. And he was transported to a local medical facility where he was treated and is in stable condition, recovering from his injuries. The suspect was identified as Fernell Nixon, and we have also obtained arrest warrants for him for attempted second-degree murder, and anyone with information is asked to contact the Houma Police Department or Crime Stoppers with that as well.
All right, and finally, with Houma Police Department, there's a press release that if you're in the area of Club Thirsty, located 1301 Barataria Avenue, we have some information on that one.
Right. So if you remember, this is the second shooting we've had there in less than a week on Barataria and the 1300 block. But on December 3rd, approximately 2:30 in the morning, units responded to that location, and when they arrived, they located a gentleman sustained several gunshot wounds throughout his body. He was transported as well to a local medical facility. I actually spoke with his mother this morning, and he's actually still in critical condition. Still not out the woods yet, but hoping that he will recover. The suspect has been identified as Jarvis Robinson, 36 years old. An arrest warrant has been obtained for him for attempted second-degree murder, and we're asking that anyone with information to contact either the Houma Police Department or Crime Stoppers.
Let me ask y'all this, because we have about 3 minutes left on this segment. We'll come back for a good feel-good story with both of y'all after, but like I said last week, I'm getting all these press releases. It's the most I think I've ever received And it's not because other people weren't typing them and sending them to us. Y'all just have a lot more to deal with. I want to ask both of you, where's it all originating? Is this more domestic? Is this just groups firing at each other? Can we sort of get a handle on this? What is it?
If you go back to the previous segment when we were talking about these juveniles and the adults being involved with the juveniles. So now look at the age of our suspects. This is what they're looking up to, apparently. We don't know. I can't figure it out. We ask ourselves that all the time, where we went wrong. One person's like this says, we just need to pray and hope it gets better, because we're looking at it and how do you prevent these things, and it's almost impossible. But if you go back to the previous episodes that we've done, where we talk about leaving our weapons in cars, right? Things that we can do as society to make things better. Where we talk about securing our vehicles and leaving weapons. Look, prime example. The car that was stolen was used in the shooting in Mulberry. A car that was stolen was used in a shooting in Village East and a shoot at people on Prospect. The gun that was in the car that was stolen was used in both crimes. So we're not speculating on whether or not the criminals are using the stolen guns, that we're not being responsible, but we're telling people, look, lock your car, don't leave the guns in it because they're going to use it. And sure enough, that's exactly what's happening. Where we're going wrong in society, that's a whole other issue, but there are things that we can do ourselves to make it a little bit better.
And Blake, we have about 40 seconds left. Juveniles are looking up to the wrong people, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, and look, we can argue all day that it's just the sign of the times, but times are a lot different than they were when we were growing up, Martin. I mean, we don't have the vicious social media outlets that are there, and I don't know if people are willing to understand, or if they're willing to admit that has a huge component of why our kids are the way they are.
All right, let's do this. Be watching Facebook and YouTube and HTV. When I come back, I'm going to have some good news with these guys. So we talked enough about the bad. We'll talk about the good on another segment. We'll be right back. Don't go away.